All right, welcome to Believe in Chargers, and that is not should-be Hall of Famer Lorenzo Neal. Thinking about him right now, just kind of working through something. Hopefully he'll be back next week, but certainly a big win for us to get the great Daniel Jeremiah with us at Move the Sticks. Of course, the Move the Sticks pod that he did for a long time. Keep your eyes open, something new coming down the pike. And DJ and I'm very lucky to have DJ to call the Charger games with. This will be his 9th year. This will be my 10th year. And DJ, just quickly, I want to start with Lowe because I just went up to his golf tournament and I was talking to you about it. I had such a great time with all the fullbacks. I played golf with Max Strong and Michael Turner and Ovi Mahaey, who you know real well from his Baltimore time. But Eddie George came, and it just shows how much people love and appreciate Lowe to have these guys fly in from all over. Jim Everett, Jeff Garcia, quarterbacks, running backs, and Eddie gave this impassioned speech, and Lowe's too embarrassed for me to do it here. I try to, but he gets uncomfortable. But he made a great point. He's like, I had my 2 best years behind Lowe. Talk to LT. He had his best years behind Lowe. Talk to Corey Dillon. He had his best years behind Lowe. The guy blocked for 11 consecutive 1,000-yard rushers. Why do you think we don't have any blocking fullbacks in the Hall of Fame?
Well, first of all, for me to be filling in for him, I was going to make a line about how, look, I'm next in line to follow Lorenzo Neal. That's literally his
Right.
entire life is just leading people somewhere. But, it doesn't make any sense to me. I just think we live in such a statistically dominated world. But it's like not putting John Stockton in the Basketball Hall of Fame because he didn't average 30 points a game. Well, yeah, he led the league in assists. This guy was literally assisting 1,000-yard rushers every single year in some of the elite players and MVPs in this league. That's who he is. He was like the John Stockton, and he had a lot of Karl Malones who made a lot of money running behind him.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you think we're because a lot, and I guess this is how we'll shift into the Chargers with Alec Ingold and how, that was a wanted poster that Mike McDaniel put up around the facility. I need Alec Ingold. Do you feel like we're getting back to it a little bit? Is the fullback kind of coming back in as the offense is maybe trying to get a little bigger, as the defense got a little bit faster?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. We saw it last year with the 13 personnel movement, seeing the multiple tight ends. Being able now, if you want to get in 22, you get the fullback back involved, and then having someone who, has a versatile skill set that can do some different things at that position that provides some creativity there for your play caller. I just think the league went overboard to shut down explosive plays, and we've been living in a world of umbrella coverage, shell coverage here for the last 7 years maybe. And it took a little bit of time for the smarter offensive minds to figure out, okay, where can we hunt explosives when they're playing this type of defense? And it's like, well, it's not necessarily going to come in the passing game. We can do it in the run game. And then how do we maximize our advantage with matchups? And it's tight ends and fullbacks. It's literally going back to 90s football, which I love because it is that 90s football money. But then you have the creativity blend now. Whereas, the Cowboys during their 90s ran 4 plays, and just ran those 4 plays from the same formations, and there's nothing you could do because they had the best offensive line in football. Now you're going to see multiple tight ends, you're going to see fullbacks, and now we still have all this new movement in formational variants that makes it a lot more fun.
I mentioned this, when we were kind of out doing mini camp and what looks different and what's changed about this team. And to me, the number one, I don't know if you agree with this or not, the number one thing, I know everyone points to the offensive line and having the tackles back, but I said, man, I look at the tight ends and the fullback, and it just looks so different to me out there from what we saw last year. Not just the names and maybe their production and what their resume is, but just the way they're moving, the way they look on the field. It does feel like those two position groups are maybe ones that are getting overlooked by a lot of fans because they're so focused on the interior of that offensive line.
Yeah, I think about it with tight ends and fullbacks, that there's buckets, right? So you've got the tight ends. It's like, oh, he's the blocker, he's the receiver, and where you get real value, and even the fullbacks, like, oh, he's a 300-pound. It's like Scott Matlock. He's out there to block people. And we threw him the ball a couple times, a little bit of an adventure.
It sure was.
But that's not what he's on the team to do. And now what they've been able to do is they've been able to get tight ends, and with Ingold, they've got guys at those 2 spots that can do everything. So you're not just looking at personnel as they come onto the field and go, okay, well, they've got the two blocking tight ends out here, so they're getting the ball, ready to jam the ball down our face, or it's going to be some deep play action. Now you got to be aware of everything. These guys can run, they're athletic, can do a lot of different things. So I think that's where it's not like, I think the offense in the past, and it did some really good things, but I think it was a little bit pigeonholed by who was on the field, and you kind of knew defensively. You had a good idea of what you were getting ready to get. And I think now, just because of the versatility of the roster, I think it's a different ballgame.
If you and I know you and your sons play fantasy, at least I think you and Hayden still do.
Yeah.
If you were forced to pick a tight end on the Chargers, who do you think ends up and it's not just yards, it's touchdowns as well. Who do you think ends up with the most tight end production between these three, Njoku, Kolar, and Gadsden?
I think I would go with Njoku, and hope he's healthy and runs out there for 17 weeks. I just think what he can do in the red zone, his ability to go play above the rim. I think Kolar has more. There's more to him than what we saw in Baltimore as a receiver. We know he's an excellent blocker, but there's a lot of tight ends in that room there. I think you'll see more from him, but I just think when you just the history, the track record of Njoku, especially once you get down inside the red zone and you're going to have to worry about these receiving threats. He's someone that Herbert's going to be able to just throw it up and let him go get it.
I don't want to put you on the spot here. I assume you got your computer in front of you. I love doing this with DJ. He is so meticulous about his scouting reports and can access them at a moment's notice. So here we go.
Yep.
Charlie Kolar, Iowa State. What was the Daniel Jeremiah scouting report?
Give me the year, Money. Give me the year.
What
year did he come out?
Real quick. Our draft. He was drafted in the 4th round of the 2022 draft, 128th overall pick.
Okay. I'm going to pull that up.
While you're doing that, I'll mention our friends at FanDuel, and we can dig into this as well, whether or not you agree with this when it comes to Super Bowl and where they have the Chargers slotted. Kind of all the signings have settled in, and free agency and the draft, and maybe through minicamp you get an idea of what the depth chart's going to look like. So Chargers right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They are at plus 1,600, tied with the Chiefs, behind the Seahawks, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Rams. There it is. Rams, such a prohibitive favorite right now after their trades, acquisitions, and obviously the Myles Garrett thing. So there you get a look at that, as DJ's now had an opportunity to dig into his annals. What do we got? Here we go.
All right, let's go. Charlie Kolar coming out of Iowa State. He was 6'6.5", 252 pounds. He ran 4.62. The interesting thing about him is he has this reputation as a blocker, but when you go back to when he was coming out, he was like a big slot. He was walling off guys down the field. He would collision at the top of his route to help create some separation. Excellent hands, a real hands catcher, not a body catcher at all. In the run game, he was, he's so tall. He was a little bit tall and narrow and kind of fell off some blocks. So this is, it's interesting to go back and look at that, Money.
Yeah.
He was my 5th tight end in that draft, which was, he ended up outperforming almost all these guys here, except for, Trey McBride would be up there. But for the most part, he's held up well, and he's a self-made man. Like, he was not the blocker that he is now coming out of Iowa State. He's developed into that.
Yeah. So, and that's what's kind of fun about it, right? So he develops into this great blocker, and now you get with Mike McDaniel, and we see what he's able to do with tight ends. Darren Waller just pulling him off the street. And for the final, 8 games of the season, he ends up with 6 touchdowns and talked about how much fun he had. Darren does the podcast. If I were to force you to put a number on it, like catches, yards, targets, whatever category you want to pick, like how involved do you think Kolar is in the passing game?
It's hard to say without having been there as much as you've been there to see the usage and what that looks like. When you've got the wide receiver group that they have now, and you've got backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield, and now you've got a tight end room with 3 guys. I'm just curious to see how it's going to get spread around. But would I be surprised if he hauled in, 50, 60 balls and 5 to 7 touchdowns? I wouldn't be that. Yeah, no, I think this offense is going to hum, man.
Yeah.
I really, really do.
Yeah, and I think you and I were talking about it. I had mentioned like how just watching the way they were, and there's no pads. I get it. They're just kind of running stuff, but he was in motion all the time in these teams, and it just felt like, when you talked about it with Sean McVay and sort of what we saw last year with those tight ends and how he was able to use them, what Ben Johnson is doing in Chicago with all those tight ends, I suspect that maybe that's what this is going to look like.
Yeah, I think that's where the league is. I'm curious to see, defenses aren't stupid, and they saw, the trend and where this thing was headed and where it's going. Are we going to see more single high coverage this year? And are teams going to spend more time in the offseason and in training camp, playing in that defensive structure to try and combat this? So, and are they going to continue to get bigger? We've seen kind of one of the reactions has been over the last few years is the big slot. We see it with Derwin James as a big nickel. So we're seeing more teams doing that. So then are we sitting here next year at this time going, hey, we're four wide, we're spreading the field, we're spreading everybody out. We'll see what the adjustment looks like. The most fun thing for me with this Chargers team this year is having followed Mike McDaniel throughout his career, is there's something new every year. So he's trend setter. He's not a trend follower. So as excited as we are about what we've seen in the past and kind of where it looks like the league is going, I'm curious to see if he's already charted a new course and has got something else in store, because he's done it almost every single year with some type of emotion or shift or play design that we haven't seen.
Yeah, what the big one last year, I think, was like the wide receiver in the backfield, right? Or not even in the backfield, but just lined up off the line of scrimmage, even with the quarterback. Just kind of, I think we had that in our Charger game, if I remember right, on that big I chant run. There was like a receiver that was backed up, and it just kind of got them all caught up, right?
Yeah, well, they also do a lot of insert stuff with the tight ends. So like they'll move the tight ends, and then they're blocking inside, in between guards and tackles, and centers and guards. So they do a lot of stuff with that, which was pretty unique last year. So again, it's like a tight end functioning as a fullback, and then you've got fullbacks who can function as tight ends. So it's going to be fun. I told you beforehand, I did a little homework on that.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I just wanted to watch their explosive runs last year, and I was like, I'm going to look at three things. I'm just going to go through and chart them. So, with PFF Ultimate and the ability to kind of cut up the video and go that route, I was like, okay, let me pull up the explosives for Miami. I pulled up 54 runs. So I charted three things. I was curious, like, are they under center? Are they in the gun? So that was one. Then, based off of, as you're watching tape throughout the year, it felt like, gosh, this is a perimeter, it's an outside zone team. It's a perimeter run game. And then what about pre-snap movement? What did you see there? So in those 54 runs, 22 of them were under center. So it was a decent little mixture of getting under center. 36 of them were perimeter runs. And I took some liberty with that. Normally on a perimeter run, you're talking about getting outside the tackle. Some of them where if the tackle felt he was outside, he would just push him and let him go, and he'd cut up inside. But it's a designed kind of outside perimeter run. 36 of the 54. 45 of the 54 had movement.
Motion.
So you've got, and that's going to be different. That's just going to be different than what we've seen. So I'm really excited about it. And, I know Charger fans spent a lot of time in the offseason concerned about the interior of the offensive line because of the issues last year. And I like the moves that they made to address that, particularly with Biotish at center. I think is going to be a major difference. But when you watch all these explosive runs and you look and see, okay, where are the key blocks taking place? It is almost all by the tackles and tight ends. Like it is, let's get this thing out. And then we're going to value with our interior guys just quickness, just to be able to cut off, wall off, wash guys down. You're not having to really blow guys off the ball. Like it's just going to be an easier lift, literally, for these interior three.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I took, probably the thing I took away most from Butch Berry's presser when he did it, just kind of describing what he asks, what the tasks are. And we brought up Biotish, and because he had mentioned how he was happy to get here early enough to be part of the process to really kind of dig in on free agents and draft. And he mentioned Tyler. And what he had said was the difference between that center and a lot of centers in this is, he goes, if I need that guy to anchor, he can anchor. He goes, and that's a lot of times that's not the case, and almost kind of made the point of, this guy is as far as we're concerned with what we look for, this is an elite player at the position for typically, because he's like, look, when the guys can move, yeah, you get into a 3rd and 12 and you're like,
Yeah,
okay, we gotta figure something out here because
you
we
get
know
350 pounds on your nose.
right.
Yeah.
And he said in the case of Biotish, he's like, that's not the deal. This dude can hold. So in your evaluation of Biotish, is that sort of what you saw as well? And look, Bradley Bozeman, obviously, all you got to do is just go back and watch. And there were some things that got away from him that certainly feels like this guy's going to be able to clean up.
Yeah, it's interesting watching him. I think he's, at or above the line across the board. So whether or not you say, okay, is there the elite trait, as a movement guy, is that at the top tier? Probably not. In terms of strength and power, is that at the top tier? Nah, probably not. But he's above the line. He's just solid in every area, and you're not having to take one thing and lose another. Where you get some of these undersized centers, as you're referencing, that hey, that's great. He can pull, he can climb up to linebackers, but guess what? It's 3rd and 7, and he's got no brakes, and now he's getting tossed back into the quarterback. That's not going to be an issue there. So he's got a real kind of a balanced skill set is how I would describe it. And that's, again, it goes back to the theme of kind of what we've been talking about here, is you've got so much versatility in the personnel now to be able to open things up. If you want to get lateral, you can get lateral. You can still, you're not losing everything in terms of if you need to move a guy or pivot and seal a guy. And then you can anchor down in pass pro. So yeah, no, I think that to me is like the overall theme of this offense is you're going to be defensively in a pickle because you're not going to know based off personnel, it's this or that. You got to prepare for the whole deal.
Yeah, I think that's what Coach McDaniel said to us. He's like, we have the answers. They don't. So if we have the answers, we got to make sure it's as tough of a question that they've got to answer as possible. And that's kind of the way that he illustrated it. Just sticking with the running that back. And obviously, Ichan is one of the best in the league. He just got paid as such. I'll tell you, man, you want to have some fun. I did it because the Chargers social media posted a couple of the big runs from Omarion from that Giant game. And it was fun to have, our audio on it, you and I talking about how excited we got with a couple of those. So I went back and watched that Giant game. And yeah, it truly was a coming out party, man, to have, while Joe Alt was in the game at least. Just your, when it was last year. So your evaluation of Hampton, kind of the way, what you thought of him when he was coming out, and obviously he got kicked in the leg and it fractured his ankle, a total freak injury against the Commanders. But, what you think about dropping him into this offense that, for Mike McDaniel has had Christian McCaffrey or Devin Ichan the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't talked to Joe Ortiz about this yet, but I got to believe he saw some of the same things, which is we were in Baltimore when Jamal Lewis rushed for 2,000 yards. Ooh. And when you see how powerful Jamal was, and Jamal's a little shorter, but there's that speed element too. Like those guys can go. Like there is a get out to the perimeter for strong physical backs who can really, really go. So that's kind of some of the similarities. So people say, like, what's the upside? Like, what could you get out of this player? Well, I've seen a similar type player. Now, it was a different offense back then with the Ravens, but that was a 2,000-yard season. And you had Jonathan Ogden, okay, now you've got Joe Alt. You've got, that line was good. This line's got a chance, especially on the outside, to be really, really good. So he's a unique player in that regard. And going back to the scouting report on him at North Carolina, this guy can catch the heck out of the ball, can run routes. Like that wasn't fully explored last year, and especially once the injury took place. So that's a whole nother element to his game, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Mike McDaniel has said his career was built upon, right? All these guys wanted to drop these fancy explosive run plays, and he figured the way that he could get in was to be the run game guy for Kyle. How creative is the stuff that he does when you're watching those explosives, maybe compared to the rest of the league? And I know you kind of mentioned it, but just to maybe build on it a little bit, because, with the motions, what is it that creates, I guess, for the term would probably be conflict, right?
Yeah.
It creates conflict in what you think you're supposed to do and what your assignment is by a defense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if you're a defender, what is going to make life easiest on you is just a static look. So, in other words, if I've got to the line of scrimmage and I see there's no motion, there's no shift, they're lined up, I communicate to the right, I communicate to the left. we're all on the same page. Where when you see breakdowns happen and where a lot of explosive plays come from, is that the 11 defenders are not connected. You've got people. Everybody says do your job. Well, it's harder to do your job when you've got the picture changing so rapidly, and you've got to communicate to make sure we're all on the same page. If you're seeing one thing, I'm seeing another thing, we're in trouble. And I think that's where they don't let you get comfortable by doing that, by just constantly changing the picture. It's unique formations, and then late movement. So it also, what it does is if you're a down defensive lineman and you're late to adjust, and you see the linebacker, if you're watching the game, will tap him on the hip and say, we got to scoot over here. All of a sudden now they're able to create angles and leverage that's where those big plays come from, as they're able to leverage it. Don't have to be the most powerful guy in the world. If I've got the angle on you, we're going to be able to crease you. And so that's where all that creativity comes from. And I think it also is something that's going to be very game plan specific, based off the teams you're playing. Some teams you might see, even more of it. Other teams, maybe it's more of a tempo thing that you can get going, but it's all there for you. And I think also from a player standpoint, especially Justin. Like Justin's going, what is this, year 7?
I believe this is his. Well, he's 27, so yeah, I think this is 7.
7 or 8. So he's in that portion of his career where I think he'll be, and it's weird to say someone's rejuvenated when they haven't even hit 30 yet, but I do think it'll create some excitement and some energy for him, just with new things, the creativity involved, and I think all that will get him going.
Yeah. So you know what? Let's finish offense on that then. I think, Lindsay, do we have MVP numbers from our friends over there at FanDuel? Tell me, when you talk about tight ends, we haven't even talked about the wide receivers, and you've actually mentioned them a couple times. But when you create these tiers, everybody look. Matthew Stafford won the MVP last year, and he was not in the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson bucket that everybody seems to have. So here's what it looks like. Josh is the favorite, followed by Lamar, Drake May, who I think lost the MVP by a single vote, then Burrow, Stafford, and then there's Herbert ahead of Mahomes. When you look at that list and you think about Allen, Jackson, May, Burrow, Stafford, does it seem like that's the right order going into the season, or because of what McDaniel might be able to do and the weapons he has, do you think Herbert should be ahead of any of those guys?
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at this as a very specific comparison, but I'll take the Chargers' 2 starting tackles healthy over any of those guys in front of him on that list. So, I connect those two things. Those 2 guys run out there for 17 weeks. Justin Herbert's going to finish higher than he was on that list. Now, whether or not he gets to the top of the mountain and wins the MVP, time will tell. But if those guys stay healthy with this offense, with what they have around him, I know the division's really good, Money, but I just don't see how he isn't up there. I just compare him specifically to the best year that Tua had in this offense.
Yeah.
And they're not the same. Like, it's just Justin's on a whole different level in terms of his talent and skill set. And I think this, they had a good offensive line there in Miami, especially a couple years ago when Tua did his thing. But this has got a chance to be really, really good. It's going to be the best group that Justin's had, around him.
Let's go defense. You mentioned that you're wondering whether or not we're going to see some single high, if we're going to see maybe some bigger bodies out there. To me, the most interesting group that I'm trying to figure out is linebacker, because it just felt like anybody that they put out there, when Delshon got his opportunity, I felt like he really brought some thump to this defense and thought he played pretty darn well when he was asked to not just be their special teams ace. And then, what Marlowe Wax did in week 18.
We're a Marlowe Wax broadcast.
Right? So now I've got, your big 3, because Troy Dye was always your third linebacker behind DP. But also that's someone who was signed as a special teams guy, kind of, right? And then just earned some reps. And then you've got your former captain of the Michigan defense, junior, that has not done anything because of injury. And when I'm watching rotations in minicamp, he's not walking out there before Troy Dye, Delshon, or Marlowe Wax. I mean, to me, that's one of the more interesting groups. And I don't think you're carrying 6 of these guys.
No, he's going to have to do one or 2 things. He's going to have to blow people away in training camp and in the preseason. Or he's going to have to fetch some value and go somewhere else. I mean, it's just a numbers game. But I mean, I go back to, just the evaluation of him coming out of college. This guy's got a lot of ability. And if you take all those linebackers and watch him get off of the bus,
Yeah.
he's going to be at the front of the line. Like, he is exactly how you would draw it up. So it's in there. It hadn't clicked, and then you have the injuries on top of it. So I'm not giving up on Junior yet. I want to see what he does in camp, see what he does once we get into these preseason games, because I can't buy into the fact that all this talent just dissipated. Like, it's in there. He's got it in him. So and this is it, man. This is a back against the wall, got to have it training camp for him. Yeah. So we've seen it in the past. Sometimes the light comes on a little later. Injuries obviously the part of that, but I've seen players where you kind of thought, I don't know if this is going to happen for this guy, and then all of a sudden it just clicks. So we'll see. I mean, Marlowe Wax, a hungry dude, man. Like, he came in there. You talk about earning your keep. Like, he went in there, and that job was not. There was nothing. There was no job available for him, and he just fought his way into one.
Yeah. The other, and I just think about a Boygby, right, who had a pretty miserable rookie season, and we were sort of told, redshirt year, just wait, and thought, whatever they asked of him last year. I mean, heck, 6 sacks, man, certainly, and a guy that played some special teams. I'm wondering whether or not we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just assume, it's coaching and Kyle Kennard's going to do the same thing. And here comes Kennard, and he's the fourth guy maybe. And to me, that's sort of an underrated. And I just, we asked Chris O'Leary in his presser about Ndame, and, I could just see him kind of lift up a little bit, right? When he answered, he goes, you wait till we put the pads on. You're going to find out about this guy, all right? This guy's got hands now. He goes, and when you feel his hands, you're going to know. And I was like, okay. Now I feel like we got a real competition in this room, if that's how excited O'Leary got when he was talking about his guy.
Can I pull up my notes here on
That's what I was hoping you were going to do, DJ. I saw you lean into the just like O'Leary puffed up a little bit. I saw you lean, and I was like, DJ's going to like this report. He's going to like what he's reading.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his game here. So obviously he's a little older, but he was just under 6'2", 247 pounds. He ran 4.73. Dude had 14 and a half sacks. Had 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl, big-time bull rush. The Michigan State game's the first game I watched, stepping up in competition, even though Michigan State wasn't very good last year. 2 sacks in that one. He's got a powerful rip move. He can really close. He's got excellent instincts and feel. He's got a swipe move. He shows speed to chase. I thought he played faster than his time. And, the number one rule for edge rushers when you're watching them against the run, in my opinion, the way I look at it is, you must dominate tight ends. We're not hanging and playing around with tight ends. And this guy manhandled tight ends. So if you really look at him, Mesidor was the same way. Yeah. Obviously, you go in the first round for a reason. Yeah. But both of those guys are so violent and physical against the run, especially against tight ends. And then I think he's got just a real knack and a real feel as a rusher. I mean, I know everybody goes, the production was there in 1 year, and they bounced around, and he's older. I can't unsee what I saw, and I was there in person and saw it at the Senior Bowl. Nobody could block the guy.
Right.
So yeah, the grade I had on him just purely as a football player would have put him in like the 3rd round, and he's an undrafted free agent.
Right, because he's 26.
Yeah.
And he's just one of those guys. I don't know how many they carry. I don't know how this thing works out, but I think about Bud and all the stuff, the good things that Coach Harbaugh has said about Bud Dupree, how much he likes having him around. But then I just look at the room and I'm like, man, I don't know how this thing is going to work and how many you're going to carry. We know they need 3 because we saw what it looked like when they didn't have 3 last year. So I don't know if that means you're comfortable carrying an extra one there, and maybe a different position group is going to have to sacrifice a body.
Yeah, I always just go back to it, man. This stuff with injuries, it all tends to sort itself out. A lot of times these decisions get made for you, more so than you even have to make the decisions. But I think it is a little bit of a microcosm of the entire team in that since we've been doing it, I mean, I feel like there's more competition for these final few spots at every position than we've seen. And it's not hoping and wishing, and this guy came out of nowhere. It's like these are known guys with legitimate college careers or production on other teams that there's going to be some tough decisions, man. And that's a good place to be as an organization.
Yeah, I think safety, another one. And obviously, and I don't think there's a tough decision. I just assume it's going to be Elijah, Tony, because I don't really put Derwin in that category. Mickens and Genesis. And, we saw him, pretty impressive interception. I know it wasn't Herbert, it was Trey, but just the way he read and diagnosed that play and jumped a route, and Trey did not see him coming. Certainly feel, and I remember Chris O'Leary just screaming his name. It just certainly seems like that's a guy that a lot of them really like and are excited about.
How much time do we have before the season? What do we got?
We got, the season's second week of September. So,
man, do you know how many Genesis puns I'm going to be able to come up with? This is a perfect storm, man.
Okay.
This,
there we go.
Old man dad jokes and the Bible all coming
right.
together with a football player. Like, it doesn't get any better than this, Money.
Old Testament humor from Daniel Jeremiah. Here we go.
And now they can rest after his first interception.
There we go. David taught him well. All right, I'm going to close with this, just because people get excited about what they don't know and in the new. At minicamp, they're running plays, and there's a giant monitor behind you where they run the play back, and you'll see all the players turn around, and they'll watch it over and over again until the next play is run. So there was a rep that I had just assumed that Brenen Thompson had kind of done a double move, and that is why he dusted. I think it was, I don't want to say it because I don't remember exactly who it was, but he was so wide open, and he was so underthrown, yet he was still so far ahead of the corner that he was able to get this
catch it like a
pass.
punt?
Yes, like it was a punt because he was so far down there. And then I turn around and I'm watching the video, and I'm like, that was just a straight run. That wasn't even a double move. He just put his foot in the ground and he was gone. And I was like, Herbert, just uncork it and throw it as hard as you can, because it feels like this guy's going to be able to get under anything you put up there. And I know you're pulling it up right now. So what do we? Because look, there are not a lot of happy endings for guys that are built like this with this kind of speed and stuff in the NFL. There are very, very few. But if you get one, man, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, again, to the size, 164 pounds, a little over 5'9", between 5'9" and 5'10". 4.26, if you're into that, it's pretty good.
I think I am.
The first thing I wrote on him, I just said, this is elite speed, elite burst, and this guy, he's on cruise control, and he's just rolling by dudes in the SEC. And then the ball goes up in the air, there's another gear. He just has a unique gear that he can get into that other guys don't possess. I thought he's actually a good route runner. Just there's some, in traffic, he's just not the biggest guy in the world, so it's not a huge target, and it's not a huge catch radius, and there's a couple drops sprinkled in there. But someone who can get vertical and someone who can release and win at the line of scrimmage and can win at the top of routes, like that's, I mean, it's, we use the phrase like a toy, like this is kind of like the ultimate toy to play with that you can do some fun things with, whether you want to flip them or reverse. Let him just run straight go routes. You want to go, get this run game going, which we spent a lot of time talking about and how excited we are for this run game. Well, one of the most frustrating things for me is when you have an effective run game and you never pay it off. Like you have a chance when you're running like that to be able to pay it off with explosives, big time plays down the field, or just simply the fact they're going to have to dedicate bodies to the box. I can flip a bubble screen out to this guy, and if you miss a tackle, he's gone. Like that's a wrap. So that's why I get really excited about his fit here with this particular group. He's going to be able to do his damage in 2 to 3 touches. Like we talked about all these tight ends. You got some backs that can catch. We got all these wideouts. He doesn't need a large volume of targets to make an impact on a game. He can do it with one.
Yeah. Keaton Mitchell, same thing, right?
Yeah.
One, that speed.
That's the thing. Like that's the whole thing. Like if you're going to be a pinch hitter on my team, like I'd like for you to be able to put the ball over the fence, because you're only going to get 1 or 2 at-bats a game. Like that's what you're hoping for. And obviously you get a little more in football. But I just like the fact that a changeup is not somebody coming out there that's like, hey, 6 yards.
Yeah.
Let's get the starter back out here. Come on.
I'm trying to remember, what was our guy's name in 2018? Was Andre, I know it's not Andre, the BC back. Who was like,
Williams?
Andre
Williams?
Yeah. It's like, all right, here comes our change of pace back. And it's 3rd and 1, and now it's 4th and 2. Okay.
Yeah, a little different feel. A little different feel here.
Anything else, DJ, you want to share with the people? I want to make sure I got to everything here. Nope. Keep your eyes open.
I'm excited for the football season, man. I know everything get pushed back a little bit, so it feels like, man, it's a long drought here. But no, I think it's an exciting time to be a Charger fan. I think if you're looking at this division, I like the fact that the division's so stacked. The Raiders are going to be better. They're not going to be great, but they're going to be better. The Broncos, or should if they have everybody healthy at the quarterback position, they're in the Super Bowl last year, and then you've got Mahomes and Andy Reid still kicking in KC, and Kelsey's back. Like, I like the fact that selfishly, as guys who get to call the games, we're going to see some great matchups, man. We're going to Buffalo and go see that new stadium with that team. Like, that's going to be awesome.
Seattle.
Like, there's some, Seattle. You get all those. The Rams game's going to be fun. Like, it's going to be a fun schedule. I think maybe more so from a broadcasting side than from the team side. I'm sure they would love, a cupcake road.
Yeah.
That's not what this is. But it's going to be some fascinating, fun matchups, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it now. We've got outside of the division, right? Bills, brand new stadium. Seahawks, the 12s at Lumen. I mean, that's one of the great
Super Bowl
venues.
champs.
The Super Bowl champs. You've got the Rams, a little home and home, home game for both of us between those two teams. Texans. I mean, I just think about that game last year and how it got away from them early before they were able to lock it up and shut them down. And an untimely drop that may, and then you're playing the Denver for the division in the final week. You got the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson and our old friend Jesse. Remember, we got the Bucks, and what Liam Cohen has done to this team with Jacksonville, and now in Tampa, the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan. Like, it's a great schedule. Selfishly, a really, really good schedule for us. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah, we got. By the way, are we going from the Har Bowl to the Mentor Bowl? Is that what we're going to go with that? I don't know how we changed the name of that.
Yeah, it works. Still Baltimore. There's a reason why they put it on Monday night. So that's really kind of
the travel. Like, at least in terms of like the night road games, that's the only one we got, right? Is that it?
Well, I was pointing out, like, with the travel, they really did after last year, and man, was that. And look, you go to Brazil, and it's 14,000 miles or whatever. That's going to do it. But the way they did our travel, so across country, Bills, quick one to Seattle, across country to Baltimore, bang bang, and that's you got 2 home games after, 1 home game before. Across the country to Tampa, next one, Vegas, 30-minute flight. Across the country to Miami, surrounded by home games. Like, there's no real
bam.
Yeah, none of that this year like we had last year when we 2 years ago when we stayed in Carolina for a week because you had back-to-back Eastern time zone. So that part taken care of for us logistically, the stupid things we think about and our sleep schedules.
I know. It really is sad, but that's where we are in life, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm looking forward to it, Money. I appreciate you having me on. I hope Lowe's doing well. He is literally one of one. There's nobody to compare him to that's ever played in the NFL. And on top of that, he's just such a good dude. So
great guy. I'll share this with you. I should let him do it, but I know you'll love this. He and Eddie George played golf. I ended up golfing with I mentioned it, Ovi, Mac, and Mike. By the way, I don't know how Michael Turner had that thick of a trunk when he was playing, and he is a string now.
He's leaned up, huh?
Crazy.
Yeah.
But Lowe played with Eddie George, and they got into this weird competition when they were out there where they started doing 100 push-ups on every tee box, and they wanted to see who died before which guy gave in first.
Yeah.
They were playing. I was like, I'm glad I wasn't in that group. And
that would not be good for my swing. I can tell you that much.
No, and I'm looking at those two dudes, just 2 refrigerators walking into our post-tournament dinner, and I was like, how was your group? Oh, push-ups and here's look at this video, Money. And I'm like, that looks like a nightmare. That's not what I'm looking for. But,
by the way, Eddie George, Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry's in his own class there, but Eddie George not far behind in terms of physically imposing dudes, man.
It is weird to see that guy standing in front of you when you're having a conversation and you're like, that guy was a running back. Like that's a defensive end. That's not. I
saw him and Ray Lewis collide many times, and it was some of the most violent acts I've ever seen on a football field.
Yep. No, I mean, and then you got just a bowling ball of butcher knives and Neal coming right at you, man, blowing you out. And
he's the best.
Yeah, he is. Well, DJ, appreciate it. Going to keep an eye on everything you got going. Very exciting. And then, like you said, a little bit of late start for us. Late July. Every training camp is 10 a.m. So excited about that. Having a static schedule. We'll see you out there, and hopefully we'll get you back on.
Yeah, I'll be out there, by the way, August 1st. That's the little back to whatever we call it, back to football.
Oh, back to football. There we go.
Boom.
So August 1st, people, training camp is open.
Come on out.
Bring all your Appalachian State Daniel Jeremiah jerseys to get autographed, and we'll have our.
There's a lot of them. There's
There
a
are.
lot of them.
Yes, there are. Appreciate it, DJ. We'll be back again next week. Big thank you to our friends at FanDuel. Everybody bolt up.